Good afternoon. If I can get you to stop eyeing the dessert on the center of your table for a moment. We're going to get started a little early this afternoon, so please continue to eat. And it's time, I think, that you get into that beautiful-looking cake or whatever tart on the middle of the table. So help yourself to your dessert and get some coffee, and we're going to get started. We're very fortunate this afternoon to have John Michael Keyes as our speaker. John Michael is the founder and director of the I Love You Guys Foundation, which is a very unique foundation. I urge you to look at in your bios, in your folder, to the background that John Michael brings to that foundation, to the work of that foundation, and to the standard response protocol that he has developed and is being implemented quite widely across Colorado particularly, but also nationally as well. And John Michael comes to us with background in graphic design, in software development and design and workflow analysis, in that kind of work. But he brings a very special orientation to this work. If you followed the news, you know that after Columbine, we had another serious, very tragic school shooting in Platte Canyon High School. And in that particular situation, John Michael's daughter was killed by a gunman, an older man who entered the school with no intention of coming out, as a suicidal, homicidal man. And that precipitated this work on the part of John Michael. So he brings a special passion to this particular work, and he has a very important message that I think you'll be privileged to hear. So please welcome with me John Michael Keyes.
I'd like to start by saying howdy. It's an honor to be here. Thank you very much. I begin presentations with a quote. It's about peace. It does not mean to be in a place where there is no noise, trouble, or hard work. It means to be in the midst of those things and still be calm in your heart. I'm going to have a conversation today, and some of it isn't easy. Some stories. The real stories. But it is my objective that at the end of my story, your stories begin. We're also going to talk about something else. Is there anyone in this room who is in this room simply because it's a job? Let's hear it. I'm sorry. What was that? That's right. Not me left the room the minute you walked in. Also going to talk about what's not said. And it's crazy. We talk to our kids about danger every day. It's big, it's red, it's hot, it's scary, it's fire. And we give our kids multiple survival strategies when confronted with the threat of fire. The indirect threat of fire, evacuate. The direct threat of fire, drop and crawl. The engagement of fire, stop, drop, and roll. What we don't do is talk to our kids about what to do when they're under fire. And it's kind of interesting. In the last 25 years, how many folks have we lost in a public K-12 school to fire? Anyone know? 0. In that same time frame, how many people we lost in our schools to active violence? Hundreds. I'm going to show a little video. ...237 violent deaths, 194 schools. But it doesn't stop with just the victims. You've got to count the victims' families when you look at who it impacts. And the schools themselves, the students, the staff, the first responders, and their families. And I can tell you that it doesn't stop there. This impacts communities where these events happen, and states. And ultimately, when you think about it, it really impacts the nation. And some folks say we can't stop it. Here's what I say. They're wrong. We can stop it, we have stopped it, and we will continue to stop it. Colorado has an interesting program. It's called Safe to Tell. It's a tip line. And it's a tip line with a difference. When you think about anonymous tip lines, what's one of the ones that comes straight to mind? Crime Stoppers, right? Great program for prosecutors. Crime Stoppers is about reporting the crime after it happened. Safe to Tell is about trying to intervene before it happens. And it's really important. Active violence, Secret Service came up with this study. 81% of school shooters broadcast their intentions in advance. Somebody knew before the events occurred. With Safe to Tell, here's what that means. 750 bullying interventions. 150 weapons taken out of schools, some of them schools with metal detectors. Suicide interventions. That number's growing. And here's a real remarkable number. In 28 cases, Safe to Tell has intervened where they found plans, weapons, hit lists, and sometimes explosives in planned school attacks. They started out 2004, less than 100 calls. But they've got this program. They outreach. They get into the schools. They talk to the kids. Last year, almost 2,000 calls. Now, the other thing I want to talk about is not here. Because that's what folks say. It can't happen here. And I'm going to tell you my not here story. Starts in Bailey, Colorado. Anyone Coloradans driven through Bailey? It's more of a concept than a town. Right there. Bailey's in Park County, middle of the state. Population around 17,000 in the county. County is 2,200 square miles, 1,600 miles of roads, 3 traffic lights in the county. One of them's on the Jeffco line. They claim that one. We know it's ours. But if you think about that, 17,000 population, the sheriff's office has 20 sworn officers to cover 1,600 miles, 2,200 square miles, 1,600 miles of roads. And with 20 officers, what's that mean? There are 4 on duty on any given day. There it is, concept of Bailey. That's Main Street. But here's the deal. It's beautiful up there. It's in the mountains southwest of Denver. It's the view. Check that out. And there's a great deal of community pride. Platte Canyon High School. It is a beautiful school. It sits right on 285. It's 3.5 miles away from the concept of Bailey. Right up the canyon, one road. There's a library. I was presenting in Aspen, and it was kind of a riot because apparently they're in a different economic demographic than Bailey. But I pointed this photo out because they showed me their school, their cafeteria. It's beautiful, this big dome. I said, this is our cafeteria. We call it the Canyon Room. See the fireplace? I suspect construction will start in Aspen this summer because they didn't have one of those. But it really is anywhere USA. All right, I'm going to introduce you to a young lady. Her name's Emily. 1990, my wife Ellen and I had twins, Casey and Emily. They were the cutest babies on the planet. There's Emily in a bunny suit. Casey and Emily fishing with Papa Jack. Of course, they grow up. The other bunny suit. No, honey. You cannot go to school in that. I am sure it's a dress code violation. Here's a tough day, September 27th, 2006. It's like any other day. Parents of teenage drivers, raise your hands. Okay. Here's the cool thing with twins. They each nailed one garage door, 2 doors down. We're just finishing up the permit process with the kids. Their 16th birthday was earlier in the month of September. Got the kids' cell phones. But on this day, it was Emily's turn to drive. My wife Ellen in the passenger seat, Casey in back. 7:30 in the morning, dropped the kids off at school. Like any other day. Just after 10, the part-time school resource officer, he was a full-time deputy, but only part-time at the school, in uniform, walked to his marked patrol car and left the school property. We know from videotape, surveillance cameras, that just before 11, a stranger stepped out of his Jeep into the high school parking lot and walked into the school. He went into room 206, AP English. He fired 2 rounds into the wall. He asked all of the male students, some of the female students, and the teacher to leave the room. Teacher's a grandmother. She's this tall. She says, "I'm not leaving my kids." And the gunman pointed the weapon at one of the girls in the room and said, "She dies if you don't go." Classroom door closed. Principal runs up, and through the closed classroom door, the gunman says he has enough explosives to blow up the building. Now, law enforcement evolves. And at Columbine, the best practice for law enforcement was to secure the perimeter and wait for the SWAT team. Okay? That's not best practice today. Best practice today is run towards the threat. Is there law enforcement in the room? Okay, that's the practice. Go towards the threat. And the response at Platte Canyon was phenomenal because 3 minutes after the first 911 call, law enforcement wasn't just at the school, they were outside that classroom door. A classroom where a lunatic was holding 7 girls hostage. Now, Ellen was headed down to Denver to stop for gas. In the scanner at the gas station, she heard something. There was a gunman at the school. So she called me up and talked me through Infinite Campus to figure out where the kids were. Casey was on a field trip in Denver, and we knew that Emily was in room 206, AP English. Now, law enforcement has a preference when there's something going on at the school. And their preference is parents don't show up. What do parents do? Show up. On my way out the door, I call my friend Lou. He's been up there 35 years. He said if they have a roadblock, which they did right there on the west side of Bailey, you can get around on 63. And that's what I did. And I ended up in front of the high school that day with a dozen or so other parents and community members right at high noon. That's us right there. I'm in the plaid shirt. But here's a vision. Look at this. Okay, look at the first responders. Hundreds of first responders showed up over the course of the afternoon. Over the course of time, the gunman released some of the hostages. We didn't know where Emily was for sure at that point. Now, I'd mentioned got the kids' cell phones. This is 2006, keep this in mind. Emily had wanted an unlimited text plan. I didn't know what that meant, so I said, sure. And she showed me what texting was. It was just before 2 when I remembered this whole concept. And I looked at my phone, and I could not figure it out. And I talked to Lou, who was there on the road with me, and he says, I don't know how to do it. And I shouted on the road, is there anyone here under 30? And Kate, reporter for the Fairplay Flume, our local newspaper, helped me text a message to Emily. "Are you okay?" And within moments, Emily was able to send this text message back while being held hostage in that classroom. I didn't know it. And I asked Kate to help me send one more message, "Where are you?" And we heard nothing else. Jefferson County Sheriff's Office came up to help. And the Jefferson County Regional SWAT Team and Sheriff Fred Wagner and Sheriff Ted Mink and the negotiators came to the same conclusion at the same time. It was time to intervene tactically. At 3:36, the SWAT team breached the classroom door with explosives. They breached one of the classroom walls to get what they call a gun port into the room. The windows overlooking the library, they had tactical guys on a tactical ladder break that window and have diversionary devices go into the room. And here's what their CBI report says. It took 3 seconds. Count it. 1, 2, 3. In 3 seconds, they got 6 guys into that room. They got a guy through the gun port. And the gun shot and killed Emily. And as he brought the weapon to himself, the SWAT team shot him. 3 seconds. Here's what it felt like on the road that day.
This is Carol at Fight Candy. We've got somebody with a gun. Please get Glenn.
Okay, where is the person with the gun?
The person is upstairs in the English pod. Okay?
Here, don't hang up.
I'm not.
I'm talking to my officers.
Tell Glenn to get down here to the scene.
I've let everybody know.
Okay.
They will be responding. Who is? Do we know who this guy is?
No, I don't know. The principal just went up to check. The kid came down here and said he's already shot one.
He shot somebody?
No, he shot the gun.
The gun.
Right.
Okay. Now, where, you said it's upstairs at what?
Just a second. I'll give you a run number.
Any Rebel District 2 car to respond to the Platte Canyon High School to the English pod. For a man with a gun.
Airplane 128, I responded. All units from the suburban route.
Okay, again, this is going to be room 206. This is a male party. We believe adult. He has fired off 1 round. They are telling me that nobody was injured.
Hello?
Yes, I'm here. I have to pick up.
Okay, it's a stranger who walked in the room with a gun, not a student.
Okay.
107 Central.
107, 104, I'm coming to be advised that I'm getting information that this male party stated anybody comes back into this room, I have enough explosives in this backpack to blow up this school. That's negative. I just obtained this information and I'm going to do that now.
Copy.
response from not just the community or even the state, but the country was overwhelming. And with some of the funds that came in, we started the I Love You Guys Foundation. And within days of losing Emily, we wrote this mission statement. It's amazing how prophetic that has become in the aftermath. Now, something else happened, and of all damn things, it's a motorcycle ride from Columbine High School to Platte Canyon High School. And believe me, at that point in time, days after, we had no interest in doing any of this. But some things get big fast, and you got to pay attention. And Frank DeAngelis with Columbine High School said, you got to pay attention to this when we did. And it was an amazing day. Thousands of motorcycles, the support of folks with ink and leather is amazing. And we did it a second year. And that second year, we wanted to honor the first responders, and so we did a 5K run. Sergeant A.J. DeAndrea with the Jefferson County Regional SWAT team, he was one of the guys that went into that room. And he said, we want to do a ceremonial run from the sheriff's office to the high school. I said, AJ, that's perfect. That's exactly where we're starting, is the substation there in Bailey. And he said, no, wait. We want to do it from the sheriff's office in Jefferson County. And I said, AJ, it is 38 miles. It is uphill. What are you thinking? He said, we aren't going to run the whole thing. We'll run it in stages. And Casey heard about this. Casey had been reserved, but he said, do you think I can run with him, Dad? And I asked AJ, and AJ said, do you think you can keep up? And I think you can tell that some of those boys are built for tackling, and one of those boys is built for running. Casey kept up just fine. Third year, again, an amazing event. We've done it now. We're coming up on our 7th one. And it is truly a spectacular day because we bring people together you wouldn't expect to see. We've got a Jeffco Regional SWAT team there on the football field at Platte Canyon, member of a motorcycle club. You don't often see him together. He's not handcuffed. Might be an instinctive reaction. That's where I want to bring this up. What's that mean? Okay? You know what? That D, I don't like this disorder thing in my life. I'd like to replace that D with decisions. Because you can perform actions in the aftermath. And that takes us back to our mission. How do we do this? Restore and protect the joy of youth. 3 years later, the fog has cleared a bit. And we looked at things. And we looked at school safety. Because schools are the fastest vector to kids. And I did a Google search. 141 million hits on school safety. Can we help? Because clearly, we're not experts. But we weren't strangers to the school. Ellen had been on the District Advisory Council since 2005. She missed a meeting in 2005, got elected chair. So we started looking at things. We went to conferences and symposiums. We held a couple of roundtables of our own to see who was doing what in this thing called school safety. We'll start with the feds. What are they up to? Well, we looked at the Department of Education, and they came up with this policy statement. Schools need a safety plan. It was brilliant. Department of Justice, Health and Human Services, Homeland Security, they all agreed. Yes, you need a safety plan, but you need to base it on the principles of emergency management. Cool, that's what the feds are up to. What's the state of Colorado doing? Well, the legislature did this. SB 181. And you don't need to do the reading on the legislation. I'll translate. Basically, it says that every day school is in session. It is accountable for 800,000 kids. And students, teachers, and staff own it. Okay? Why? Because they're the first to detect the threat. They're the first to respond to the threat. And after the first responders who got their second leave, who's left to cope with the aftermath? So, schools need safety plans. And here's how. We're going to use NIMS, the National Incident Management System. All right, so now we've got this mandate on the table. Did you hear any mention of funding in there? So that would be, here we got this unfunded mandate on the table. Department of Education has to talk to the schools about how best to comply. So they did. Use NIMS, National Incident Management System. What happened is that you talk to schools and say you got to learn this stuff, got to go to FEMA. Got to mention to the schools, now don't stress, this is the good FEMA. They got tons of stuff online. And the online courses that the state identified that school administrators and safety teams need to do are these. At a bare minimum, to comply with the legislation, you've got to do IS 100 and IS 362. Online courses talks about the incident command system and emergency planning for schools. And it's kind of interesting because what we're doing is taking first responders who already know this stuff, who already share this common language during a crisis, and teaching schools the same language that first responders are using. Made sense to me. Shared expectations, shared milestones, shared behavior during a crisis. We also looked at this 362. And one of the aspects of Independent Study 362 was this concept of drills. You got to do these drills. And I looked at the drills and I said, what they really are a classroom response to an event. Now, we also looked at plans, and lots of safety plans, but almost every safety plan had scenarios in it. And we looked at these scenarios and realized something, and that is that the same action wasn't referred to the same way in between these scenarios or in between schools in the same district. And that got me curious. I started looking at these actions. What are they? How are they named? How are they implemented? And what we found was all over the map. It was crazy. It wasn't just a volume of terms and philosophies. There are still plans out there today that rely on codes. Response levels. And what happened was we looked at all of this language and made a case. Met this guy at one of these conferences. He said, we need clear and distinct terms of art. Turns out, at the time, he was the executive director of the Department of Public Safety for Colorado. All right, does it exist? We looked for it. We looked for it at the federal level. What was the criteria? Clear and distinct, federal level. Okay, so we looked at the state. Where we found it was boots on the ground. Cities, counties, and districts, and one in particular. Found it in Knoxville, Tennessee, and we found it closer to home in Broomfield, Colorado. Here's my shout out to Adams 12 Broomfield folks. Where are you in the room? Yay! What they did is put together this training video and brought it into the classroom. And I'm going to show you a 60-second snippet of it.
Hi, I'm Tom Dillon, Chief of Police for the City and County of Broomfield. The Broomfield Police Department works with all Broomfield schools to increase school safety. As part of this collaboration, a school safety continuum has been developed to help illustrate the 6 main components in a comprehensive plan for addressing a school violence incident: prevention and intruder identification, lockdown or lockout, evacuation, relocation, reunification, and recovery, returning to learning.
Today we have discussed lockdown, lockout, and evacuation. The other concepts listed in the continuum should be discussed and reviewed frequently. A lockout is used when a threat is outside of the school.
Hurry, 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 hurry. Great, come on, guys.
A lockdown is used when a threat is close to or inside the school building. Remember, locks, lights, out of sight. When an officer arrives to evacuate you from your room, follow their instructions.
That's good. Just form the line right there. That's good.
Elegant in its simplicity. We also worked on some classroom materials. And that's when I realized we could help. They'd called it the response action matrix. But I know educators and I know cops, and if you're going to pick a paramilitary demographic, that would be law enforcement. If you were to identify one of the least paramilitary demographics on the planet, that would be educators. So we renamed that response action matrix to the standard response protocol. And what we do is we take the what if and flip it into how to. And those 4 actions, lock out, lock down, evacuate, and shelter, make up the SRP. And here's one other aspect. The SRP has one demand: direct and honest communication. What is the duration of a crisis? Minutes, hours, days? What is the duration of recovery? Perhaps longer. So, direct and honest communication is imperative during a crisis. And sometimes I get on a soapbox and say this, and that is that recovery starts during the crisis, not after. Direct and honest communication. All right, Cliff Note version of the SRP. Starts with lockout. That's when there's a threat outside the building. I live in Bailey, Colorado. We get bears in the dumpsters. We do not want the kids playing with bears. We do a lockout. But it could be criminal activity in the area. We teach the kids, get in the building. Staff, teachers, administration, let's make sure the perimeter is secure. When we invoke the protocol, we repeat it twice on the PA. Lockout, secure the perimeter. Lockout, secure the perimeter. Lockdown, that's more serious. That's when there's a threat inside the building. Lockdown, locks, lights, out of sight. Lockdown, locks, lights, out of sight. We train kids in this. And it doesn't have to be scary. Guess what? Little kids get it. One of the daily conversations that kids have when they're wee tiny sprouts is stranger danger. You know how we talk about a lockout or a lockdown? What happens if the stranger's outside the building? Lockout. What happens if there's a stranger inside the building? Lockdown. We also talk about evacuate. One of those drills, reverse evacuation, that FEMA suggested. Pretend you're a kindergarten teacher on the playground, and you got those 3-year-olds, and you shout, reverse evacuate. I want a video camera. Let's be clear and distinct. Hey, kids, get in. Evacuate inside. And then shelter, we talk about hazards and protective strategies. And that's the standard response protocol. What's really cool is it's easy to train. Jefferson County School District, 13% are subs on any given day, 1 in 8. Here's their substitute teacher training. We use the standard response protocol. Read this half sheet of paper. In the case of a crisis, bring it with you during the evacuation, okay? And at the evacuation, take roll. If you've got all of your kids and everything's okay, just fold this piece of paper up. Say okay. On the other hand, if you need help at the evacuation assembly, fold it up and say you need help. If you need medical assistance, here it is. As visual triage during an evacuation assembly, this is spectacular. Guess what? There used to be a practice of sliding things under the doors in the classroom. Law enforcement doesn't like that anymore. It's too much information for the bad guys. When we started, we needed to get feedback. I wanted to make sure I wasn't hallucinating. We started in 2009. And one of my concerns was this. What's that? Too much information. It's when it was first pointed out you're not an expert because you're confusing the procedural versus the tactical. What the SRP is a standard procedure. We aren't giving law enforcement tactics out. Here's another question. Does it replace your safety plan? Heck no. It makes it simpler. And it's really interesting because we've seen it. We've seen it in Adams County. Here's Scotts Bluff. What they did was incorporate the standard response protocol right into the county-wide safety protocol. And it's interesting. You can see occasionally you'll stack up a couple of the protocols over the lifetime of an event. Short-term benefits, it's way cool. This is simple, easy, effective. You've got shared vocabulary between students, staff, and first responders. Long-term, it gets even more interesting because it pursues a kid through their K-12 education. Now, how do we do it? We listen to Mother Teresa. Yesterday is gone. Tomorrow's not yet come. We have only today. Let us begin. Got to want it. Got to own it. Got to do it. What's that? Here's the I Love You Guys Foundation way, and that's download it yourself. Okay, write this down, iloveyouguys.org, because on the website we've prepared materials that are available to districts, departments, and agencies at no charge. Just download it. We've got operational guidance. We've got sample memorandums of understanding. Student-parent handout. Tell the parents what's going on. Districts are sending this out once a quarter. A lot of times, PDF email. Paper into the first week of school. Classroom posters. It's our second version of the translation for Spanish. First version made native Spanish speakers sort of laugh. We've got public address protocol poster. Set it by the PA. Red card, green card, med card. Some schools just want red, green. Others want red, green, yellow. We did that. Put together a training presentation, changing the world through PowerPoint. Put together the PowerPoint and a discussion guide. It's online. Trainer workbook, talking points. Had one school say, we've got draconian printing policy, so I can't print out your books. But we're a school, we can buy books, so we figured out how to do on-demand publishing. If you want to buy books, but download it. All right, there's more. We started getting into this, and just as a quick aside, this is a new thing. It's standard reunification method. Talking to a principal, he said, we do fire drills every day, or every month. I never thought about what happens if there is a fire. How do you bring parents and kids together accountably? So, does this look like a reoccurring thread? Standard reunification method, put together a book. We've got plan templates that are almost done. And we talk about how to practice. You guys got to drill this stuff. If you would have asked me 3 years ago what outreach was, I would have said it's this fuzzy thing that the organizations do when they can't measure results. Well, I've learned a new trick. April of 2009. Our first presentation on the standard response protocol was in a firehouse in the concept of Bailey. By July, we'd been invited to present this concept at a national school safety conference in Florida. September, first school district implemented was Jefferson County in Colorado, 167 schools. By the end of that school year, we had 250 schools in the state sharing the same language, the same protocols, the same training. 500 schools. The beginning of the next school year. The beginning of the 2011 school year, 750 schools in Colorado and thousands across the country are implementing the standard response protocol. 2.5 years, 45% of the state schools in the state. Across the country, we did it with no mandates, no government grants. But we've got a conundrum. How do we measure it? Here I am at the premier evidence-based symposium on the planet presenting the standard response protocol, which isn't a model program. All right, I'm going to wrap it up really quick. If I can keep you guys 4 extra minutes. We're doing something interesting. Colorado has seen 4 of these major shooting events, and June 25th, 6th, and 7th, we've got a thing called the Colorado Briefing, where we've got firsthand accounts of all of these things in the same room, a 3-day symposium. Here's what it looks like.
Jefferson County 911.
Yes, I am a teacher at Columbine High School. There is a student here with a gun. He was shot out a window. I believe one
shooting high school in Colorado.
I'm at Columbine High School.
Because the situation
I don't know what's in my shoulder.
is I left
If
it
it was
right
just
here.
around
Now
me,
he's on the ground.
Okay, has anybody been injured?
It would be inappropriate for me to say anything other
I'm
than
full of a panic.
I hope the
And I was in my
people
bed. I thought,
will be praying for the students, the parents, and the teachers. And we'll wait for us to unfold and then
This is Carol at Pike Canyon. We've got somebody with a gun. Please get Glenn.
Okay, where is the person with the gun?
The person is upstairs in the English pod. Principal just went up and checked. He didn't come down here and said he's already shot one.
He shot somebody?
No, he shot the gun.
Because just moments ago there was activity outside the school. But earlier, starting about noon today, there was an adult male who went inside the school and held some students hostage, and apparently this is all coming to an end right now. However, when I heard
He's down. One hit. He's down one hit. He's down. Get the girl with him. Get him medical. Get him medical.
Nevada 911.
Hi, we're at South 750 West 53rd Avenue. A man was standing at our door. He fired at us.
What do you mean he fired at you?
Okay, what?
What do you mean he fired at you?
He had a gun.
Was anybody hit?
Yes, I'm hit in the leg. My friend was shot in the neck.
16. I need medical. We're going to call the south side of this building, the number 1 side. Need them. They are clear to come in. We're going to evacuate the victims. Out that door, got at least 3 down. Okay, right mark 106 and 108. Go to the south side of the building.
Talk about our kids, about danger. But I don't think the world is a scary place. I do know it's an uncertain one. But I also know this. We've got the capability and the desire to make this world a magical place for our kids. I'm going to end where we began. It's about peace. It does not mean to be in a place where there is no noise, trouble, or hard work. It means to be in the midst of those things and still be calm in your heart. Thank you very much.